My wife has become distant and secretive. After a new supervisor joined her workplace, I think she is cheating on me. I'm 32M and have been with my wife, 28F, for 7 years. At first it was great. She was my soulmate and I was hers. We had similar interests in sports, entertainment, social issues, more on that later, holiday destinations, etc. We were happy for years. However, things started to change when my wife became more distant, even slightly colder. Now let me give you some insight. We have been together for 7 years, and for 5 of those years it was, as I said, happy. I felt I was her world as she was mine. We went out with friends and I always saw her smiling at me. When we talked to our friends, she would take care of me. When I was sick, as I did with her, she would back me whenever needed. She was my rock, my best friend, my one and only. We would do many things together, like hiking, camping, and visiting wildlife resorts. We had the same interests and went to watch football. We had a passion for each other. I never wanted her to change. When I first met her, she was beautiful, with brunette curly hair and a stunning smile. She was so nice and always made me feel the same way. Not once did I feel inadequate or insecure about myself, more on that later. As I said, for over 5 years, it was great, but things started to change when her new supervisor started at her work. I'm calling him Maru, 30M. At first, she would come home and talk about Maru. She would say that he's funny and makes people feel good. Of course, I was slightly taken aback at first because she would usually come home and ask about my day and hers, but she immediately talked about Maru straight away. However, at the time, I brushed it off as her being excited about someone new at her work. She had seen the same faces for years, so when Maru showed up, it was refreshing. Weeks passed, and my wife seemed to be more distant and secretive. She would go out to work nights, which didn't bother me as she had done plenty before. However, we were meant to go out to a mutual friend's house for drinks. He is in a bad way as he has been diagnosed with a severe disease. My wife, as I said, is a rock, usually really empathetic and supportive. So when we found out about our friend, Daniel, 32M, we didn't hesitate to go over and show our support. The night came to go over and my wife was running late from work. I called her a few times with no answer. I texted her, still no answer. After waiting, I decided to go to Daniel's myself. Daniel and I talked about how he's adapting and coping during that time. I felt for Daniel. He's such a nice guy. Afterwards, I got home and was seething. My wife was still not home. No missed calls or texts. Seriously, I couldn't believe it. I was getting worried she had been in an accident. So I called her work colleague, Jane, 28F. I get on well with Jane and asked her if Kelly, my wife, was out with her. Jane said that she was, but that Jane had gone home and it was just her and Maru left out. I was angry, so angry. We had known Daniel for years, and she would skip meeting our friend for a guy she just met. I kept telling myself there was an explanation for this. I waited until she got home. Eventually, she arrived home and saw me in the living room looking at her. "What's wrong? Everything okay?" I looked at her in amusement and said, "Daniel." She looked mortified. "I'm sorry. I forgot. I was out with work friends and lost track of time." She looked sincere. Her and Daniel were good friends, so maybe she did forget. I did ask her a question. "Who was out with you?" She replied, "Usuals, Jane, Sophie, etc." I replied, "Not Maru?" "Oh yes, he was there." I pressed on, remembering what Jane said. "Did everyone stay out until the end?" She replied, "Yes, it was a good night." The next day I was angry. I didn't say anything to my wife, but she had never lied to me before. She had never let anyone down before. I couldn't grasp that she would bail on our sick friend for a guy she just met. The next few days my wife was becoming more distant. She would come home later and not be affectionate towards me. I still put this down to workload maybe. But when she got home, she would be on her burr. I like that idea. So I texted my wife and asked if she's busy after work. She replied, "No, I'm free." It seemed to be a nice text conversation. So I made dinner, got a nice bottle of wine and flowers. She got home and looked sad at me. She said she's really sorry, but a friend from work is organizing a surprise birthday party for a colleague, and that night is the only night they have. I shook my head in frustration and anger. She literally left right after and drove off. This was it. After months of suspicion, I needed proof. I know you must read this and say to yourselves, "Friend, can you not see the signs?" I could, but I was hoping that I'm wrong, hoping that it was a bad dream. The truth is, I was scared to find out, but I had to. I needed proof, so I wasn't proud of it. I put a tracker in her car. I pretended to be at work late so she didn't see me. When she got home, she did arrive home. I watched from a distance, and she set off again in her car. I followed her as she went further out of town. She eventually pulled into a car park that was secluded in the corner. She was waiting until another car pulled up next to her. It was him, Marus. She got out and got into his car. It was obvious what they were doing. I recorded her getting into his car for evidence against her. For the next few days, she acted like everything was fine. I know that she doesn't realize I know, but she was acting normal, smiling at me, even holding my hand at breakfast. She left to go to work. I had a day off and decided to snoop on the laptop to see anything suspicious. There was nothing, but when I was looking through her drawers, I know, not my proudest moment, I saw an iPad under the bottom drawer. It wasn't mine, so I assumed my wife bought it. Luckily for me, it didn't need a password. I don't know if she forgot to lock it, but I got lucky. I got in and looked. Now, this is where the damage really hurt. I looked in the iPad and checked to see text conversations, but nothing. However, what I was about to see, I will never ever forget. There was a folder of pictures of my wife bear making sexual positions for him. There were so many, but there was more. There were videos. I know I shouldn't have looked at them, but I did. The videos were graphic. Marus sleeping with my wife and my wife enjoying it. But that's not all. My wife was seen sleeping with another woman and another man with Marus there. But the other man was someone who really made me sick. He is a bigot. He had vile tattoos of certain groups who are vile. Like I said, a vile human being. It seemed that Marus agreed with his views, which was fitting. I couldn't believe it. My wife being with a man who held bigoted views. This was a woman who detested any form of bigotry, as did I. So why would she do this? What did she see in him? It was seeing her being fully complicit that really got to me during our marriage. We always talked about fantasies, but never acted on them as a man. It was trio, etc. But my wife said she would never do it, never sleep with another woman, or do anything that made her feel uncomfortable. I accepted that without a second thought. It didn't bother me that she didn't want to do it. I loved her. So to see her doing things that she never did with me hurt really bad. I watched all the videos. I know I'm stupid. I copied the videos and pictures to my laptop for evidence because that's all that matters. I want her gone. I just don't know why she did it. I don't know why she refused me the fantasy route, if you will. What made him so special? Why was she into a man that I thought she despised because of what he represented? Anyway, I spoke to Daniel about everything. He's a great man and friend. He couldn't believe I was talking about my wife. He was disgusted with her, but noticed her change as well. I told him that I want to divorce her. He understood. He said I have enough to back me. He told me that confronting her and him is pointless because she has already made up her mind. He said that I need a fresh start and to find someone who is themselves and not a mirage of the woman I married, like myself. Daniel hates vile racists and shook his head that my wife did this. Daniel has known my wife a lot longer than me. After speaking to Daniel, it made me feel like I was in control. For months, I felt that she was in control. I was prepared to pay until then. Anyway, I wanted to move out. So the day came. She went to work. I made up that I had to go and later to cover for being short-staffed. She shrugged and said, "Okay, no, goodbye, hug or kiss." Still, that hasn't happened for months, so I was used to it. She left. I packed up my essentials and put the divorce papers on the kitchen table along with my wedding ring. That was it. I stayed with my friend from university, Adam, who lived in another city. I was grateful, but more grateful that it was far from her, the city, our same social circle. I wanted nothing to do with any of it. I told my parents about what happened and they were shocked but fully understood. I obviously didn't tell them every little detail. There was no need. All I can think of at the moment is that I'm free. My wife would, I assume, agree, as it was clear that Maru is the one she wants. I hope that we get a quick divorce, I really do. Later that night, my phone was blowing up with calls and texts. It was my wife. I was surprised because I honestly thought that this was what she wanted as well. But it seems that I couldn't be more wrong. I didn't speak to my wife. I had no interest in it. I read her messages, and all of them consisted of, "I'm sorry, I love you, please, can we talk, etc., etc." This lasted for hours. I blocked her number and deleted all my social media accounts. I spoke to my lawyer about my wife signing the divorce, but she hasn't signed. She did contact me through email. I wanted to have some way of communication because I still want the divorce. She sent me an email again, saying sorry a number of times and that we needed to talk. I replied, "No, all I want is the divorce." She replied that she doesn't want one. I am the man she only loves, and Maru meant nothing. It's funny because I never mentioned to her why I left, but she obviously knows why. Her guilty conscience and seeing her plead for forgiveness was actually satisfying. I spoke to Adam, and he said I could stay as long as I wanted. I am thankful for him, but he did say that I would have to meet her. Eventually, he said that I left without having answers, and no matter how hard you try, eventually you will need to hear them inside. I was disagreeing with Adam. Why should I talk to her? Why? She gave little regard to my feelings for months. She didn't care about me. She cared about her sick friend Daniel. She didn't care. So why would I talk to her? I know that deep down I'm being stubborn, but I'm also angry that my wife is trying to reconcile. I honestly thought she would have signed and moved on with him. This has me mixed up, and even more mixed up now is that my wife wants to meet. I have a therapist who is excellent. I talked about the affair, the pictures, the videos, all of it. I mentioned that my wife wants to meet up before she signs. My therapist was blunt. She said that when I left without telling her why, deep down, I wanted her to plead and worry. I keep telling myself she wouldn't care, but deep down, I want her to care. I want her to feel pain like she did to me. However, meeting her would take some of my control. She was right. She added that if I decide to meet in person, I must ask the difficult questions, even if I don't like the answer, because I do have questions, and I am not moving on at all. I am running away because I am scared that the last 7 years were a lie. Like I said, blunt. That was 2 days ago. My wife really wants to meet and implied that she won't sign without meeting. First, I spoke to my parents and close friends about it. My dad said that I could force the issue of her signing, but that could take months. But if she's willing, there's no guarantee she will sign after we talk. Then it's worth it. Adam agreed. I decided to meet my wife. Although low to say I'm nervous is an understatement. How should I approach this? What should I ask her? Should I be open or guarded? Any help and advice would be grateful. Update 1. I'm sorry that my update has taken longer than I liked, as I was going to post the next day. Unfortunately, circumstances got in the way. But before I do, I want to thank everyone who posted their feedback. I read every single one, and I took everyone's advice on board. I was overwhelmed. To be honest, I really appreciate it. I also would like to point out some things regarding my previous post. A lot has happened since I posted. The place was a neutral venue, so to speak. It was near the beach, where there are people, but not too many, in case a scene is happening, which I obviously don't want. I want to meet outside with just me and her. I know some of you in the comments said to take a friend, but I felt that it wasn't needed. But still, I appreciate the advice. I do, however, agree that I will definitely be recording the conversation, which I did before the meet. I emailed my soon-to-be ex and laid down some ground rules, and if she didn't abide by them, there would be no chance of reconciliation. The rules were simple. 1. Answer every question that I have honestly. 2. No deflection answers like it just happened or I'm not sure, etc. I want detailed answers. If she storms off without answering every question, it's over, no reconciliation. 3. Answer even if you think the answer will hurt me. 4. Don't be late. If you are, no reconciliation. So we made the place on time. Now it's about waiting until I leave to go home to my flat. The next day, I catch up with other friends. They treat me like I'm Daniel, although I get it. I get the hugs and support, which I appreciate. But it seems inevitably that our breakup has spread. Although I question, how do they know? I only told a handful of people, but my wife inevitably told her family and friends, and of course the domino effect would happen. However, they obviously didn't know the full details. They didn't know about the texts, pictures, and videos. Not even my wife knows that I have them. She is under the impression I left because she was spending too much time with Marus. She doesn't know about what I have. All she thinks is that time with Marus made her husband upset, and she broke it off. I told my therapist about the meet. She said that I should ask certain questions to give her better insight into what happened. I'll explain it later. It's the day of the meet. I was nervous before, but my goodness, I am in bits. Not because I want her back, but seeing her means seeing him in my mind, and then I would lose focus and control. I drive up to the beach early, really early. I take in the surroundings, and in reflection, it was a perfect day. The sun was out, and people were taking their morning stroll. I picked a nice venue. Then, out of nowhere, I turned to see my soon-to-be ex walking towards me. She was smiling. She looked great, definitely glammed up, although she looked slightly worn out and stressed. No sympathy. She approached and tried to hug me. I put my arm out as to say no. She looked at me in an understanding kind of way. We sat down and settled. She tried to start small talk, but I wasn't interested. I had my phone on record and started. When did you first kiss him? The first week, on the Friday. When did you first sleep with him? The same day on Friday. Where? At his place. Did you ever do it on my bed? Does it matter? I looked at her and said, about the email, answer everything. I stated, yes. She started to tear up. When she basically said it was a number of times I was out, our neighbors saw him, but rightly thought he was a work colleague. They thought nothing of it. She apologized already and kept apologizing, but I put my hand out for her to stop. I asked my other questions. Did you tell him about me, about you being married? Yes, but at the time it was a blur. Now my therapist asked me to ask her a specific question. This was it. When you first met Marus, how early was it that he talked about me? What do you mean? It's simple. When you talked, what did he ask you about me? Did he want to know how long we were married? Were we happy? Etc. After a pause, yes, he did ask about our marriage and if we were happy. Why me? Didn't that strike you as odd? You met a guy you hardly know, and he's asking personal questions about our marriage. Her. No, I think he was just being generally curious. I didn't think of it as being weird, more of this question's relevance later. After asking a number of small, hitting questions, I decided to go for the big ones. I decided to ask her about the videos and pictures. However, I did it in a nonchalant way. I referenced a racist attack near us at a local store, so I went soft and turned it like this. She looked at me, watery-eyed, but answered her. He was the new boss in our department. He was open and funny. He made people feel good about themselves. A lot of women liked him even after starting, he had it. But when he started to take an interest in me, I felt like he chose me. What the hell does that mean? Her? You want honesty? And I need to be honest. When we started talking, he made it clear that he was only interested in me. I interrupted and said, after a couple of days, yes, that's what I'm saying. He had a way immediately to make someone happy, and even more, I felt great when I saw him looking at me from across the office room. I felt great when he spoke to me saying, "You're the only interesting person here." Like I said, I felt he chose me. What, her? I know it's pathetic. I'm pathetic and weak, but you have to understand what it was like. When he first started at the office, he was good looking, confident. He was just right. He had an aura about him that when he smiled, I melted. She continued, he could have had anyone at the office at the time. All the girls wanted him. They all talked about him constantly. I know it sounds bad, but I never thought he would pick me. Wait, you wanted to be picked? Her? No, not initially. I figured it would be harmless flirtation or something. But he made it clear that he wanted more than that. And that was it for me. What was it for her? Him being a kind of magnet that I couldn't shake off again. I know it's pathetic, but give me a second. When he talked to me and gave me compliments, I was stunned but really flattered. My confidence went from 60 to 10,000. I thought to myself, this man could have anyone, but he told me it was me. He chose constantly that he could tell it was me. Me? What was it? I don't get it. Her? He made me feel that I was the one. I was the one that he was meant to be with. I know it's not what you want to hear, but I'm being honest. Continue, I said. I can't deny I was attracted to him. It was obvious. I see that now. Me? Wait, you thought you were hiding it? Well, her, at the time, yes. At the beginning, he flooded me with compliments. Other girls were jealous of me. I got a rush from it. I liked it. The more I saw of him, the more I wanted to feel like a queen. I know that he treated me so well. I was lucky, but Marus at the time was just another level. I got a buzz from seeing jealous women being envious of me. I did ask for honesty. She continued, in my view, I thought to myself, I'm so lucky to have this man, but the longer I was with him, the more he changed. But I couldn't stop it. I asked her what she meant. He was specific in what he wanted. He got to know me, but unconditionally, he got me to do the opposite of what I liked. Those videos and pictures were his idea. And yes, I know his friend and his ideology, but I didn't want to challenge him or Maru because I didn't want to upset him. He had a way of saying that if you can't make me happy, someone else will. He had this, do you know how lucky you were, attitude at the time. I panicked. I went to extreme lengths to keep him happy. I wanted to make him happy, and nothing else mattered. So at the time I did anything for him. You obviously saw that, I told her. Of course I did. And about the... I know. But as I said, he was a magnet that I couldn't shake off. The more I saw him, the more I wanted. He made me believe that you were the bad guy. He made me believe that you were holding me back and that you didn't respect me. I know it's not true. She was in tears again. But that's why I did everything he told me to do, even after he was criticizing you. I couldn't fight back, because I was hooked. Me? And that makes it okay with how you treated me? Bailing on dinner? Bailing on camping? Seriously, her? No, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it because I know how I treated you. I was nasty to you, and I will never forgive myself. But I did it. Bailing on dinner, etc. I knew I was hurting you, but I couldn't stop. He kept telling me that I deserved more than you, and that I should be treated like a queen. So the more I went out to high-class restaurants, VIP theater shows, I'm ashamed that I took this vile man over you. I looked at her. I didn't expect her answers, but she seemed well sincere. I replied, though, aside from your affair, you know, what the problem is that at the beginning you wanted the affair because you said he chose you. You said he was a med, but millions of people get themselves off meds. They realize that they have problems and get help. You didn't. You carried on. The only reason you are here is because I'm your safety net, and now it's gone. There is no way a spouse can say I love you when you make them feel inadequate. She claims she didn't. No, you did for 11 months. You made me feel worthless. As you know, I was eating, becoming more reclusive, and losing myself all the while you were going out every night, going to the gym, buying new clothes, being a different person. You came home and looked at me with disgust. During that time, you didn't let me touch you or anything. You didn't give me anything but abuse. Yes, you did abuse me mentally. Maybe you didn't think you were doing it, but damn, you did it. My best friend and soulmate made me hate myself. She's in tears again. It got that bad. I was thinking of I didn't say it, but you get the picture at this point. She is crying heavily and apologizing so much that I forgot we were at the beachfront. People were watching, and I had to tell her to breathe. She got her composure back and kept pleading. It was him feeding her the toxic thoughts against me. I did have one last question. Do you love him? No, I don't. I know that you won't believe me, but I actually hate him as much as I hate myself. After a few hours of talking, she left saying everything was true. I was the love of her life, etc. I sat by the beach thinking about the possibility of her being groomed, conditioned, etc. I mean, it makes sense. After she met him, she changed, totally changed. There was a reason why my therapist wanted to ask that question. Although she can't diagnose Marus, she thinks he has sociopathic tendencies, hence why he asked about our marriage. She said it's clear that he had an agenda asking about your marriage to your wife so early. The signs are there. He did choose your wife. He knew that you were happily married and solid, so he had his new challenge. The challenge was simply to cause a breakup and ruin the lives of sociopathic people. Marus would never have been with a single girl because there was no challenge. But with my wife, it wasn't just her he was controlling, but me as well, her friends and family. He turned her into everything your wife is against and made sure she did. He turned you through your wife into a depressed loner, she continued. That's why you never confronted her. After the texts and videos, you didn't have the confidence at all. That's what he and your wife did. He pulled the strings, but my wife willingly played along. Sociopaths like to manipulate and control the narrative. When you followed your wife to the parking lot, he probably knew you would follow her. If you confronted them there, most likely your wife would take his side. Thus, he would have won. People who have sociopathic tendencies have no empathy. They are driven by seeing others suffer by their hand. Is there some truth to that? Is my wife a victim of a sociopath? It fits. But a part of me doesn't care. Well, part of me cares fully at times. Who is this guy? I keep telling myself I never seen one man come in with such authority and ruin people's lives. But deep down, he was the package. He was a boss, making decent money. He was 30 but looked 21, had a great physique, and had confidence. That would make women turn, right? But maybe my soon-to-be ex was right in that she finished with him. That day I left, because after I left, my neighbor said to me that Marus kept coming around to my house, demanding to talk to my soon-to-be ex. He apparently did this a number of times. As my wife said, when we met, he was acting like the physically abusive husband. My therapist said sociopaths cannot accept rejection, especially when they don't have control. My wife dumped him, and he became erratic. Why? My therapist said it's simple. Your wife chose you over him. Lucky me, he manipulated her for under a year, and she still had the strength to finish it. That undoubtedly derailed his plans. Update, I contacted HR about my wife and him. Turns out other people contacted HR as well. It seems that the affair news spread. He left shortly after me and my wife spoke. I don't know where. I don't care. My wife also left before she was. I think the pattern of the affair makes sense. I soon-to-be ex asked if there is a chance for reconciliation. Eventually, I have to admit I thought about it. Even if she is a victim of a master manipulator, how can I trust her? If I took her back, all I would be thinking about is him and how I cannot measure up compared to him. I would feel second best. No matter what she assures me, it's not the case that I have always been her soulmate. Even after she said it, my life with her wouldn't be the same. I suppose the moral of the story is that cheating is obviously wrong. It affects and damages the partners. More so, cheaters are truly selfish. They only own up if they're caught or leave divorce papers on the kitchen desk. I certainly won't marry again. The damage of the affair has hurt me deeply. I still feel inadequate about myself, that I'm not good enough. Although I have been going to the gym again, hiking and camping with friends, I've been trying to stay active, trying to move on. But I do have this hate. I hate my soon-to-be ex for easily falling for him and him choosing my wife. Why did it have to be her? I keep telling myself, but these questions I ask myself are pointless because it's done. Now the damage has been done, and it still hurts. I still have my job, and moving to the outskirts of the town is good. I'm not one of those people who move thousands of miles away, although I get it. But my work and social circle have been good to me, and I don't want to lose it. If I relocated completely, then I feel I would want to, and I refuse to be a victim. My therapist said that it will take time to heal. Just be patient. Well, that's it. All of your comments I took on board and fully appreciate. Update 3. I know it's been a while since my last post. I want to thank everyone who contacted me. I apologize for not getting back to you. Life has been crazy, but I hope you understand a lot has happened, and it's only right that I give you the conclusion to the story. First, I want to clarify 2 things. 1, I noticed in the comments that my story was fake because I didn't think that the texts were proof. I knew my wife was setting me up, and my friend said that it was probably nothing. He meant this because he and others feel that digital flirting is not cheating. I took his word for it. Plus, I didn't want to face what was going on. 2, the reason why I wanted feedback for meeting my wife is purely because I wanted validation that I did the right thing. As I said, I already met my wife, but wanted to see if I did the right thing in your eyes. Sorry, I should have been clearer about that. As I said before, the story is complete for me, but I want to tell you the conclusion of it. So here it goes. After meeting my wife at the beach, my head was in bits. As stated before, my wife is still trying to talk again, but I'm still not processing everything that's happened. I still talk to my therapist. However, my wife is seeing a psychologist at the private hospital that her parents paid for. I found this out because I saw my wife's parents when I was hiking by myself. I was walking through the shallow stream, and I heard my name being called out. It was her parents. I was slightly worried about seeing them, especially after meeting with their daughter at the beach. I thought to myself, what did my wife tell them? Did she lie to them? Did she badmouth me? Turns out she didn't at all. Her parents came over. The mother hugged me, and the father shook my hand. Both apologized for what happened, but I said they haven't anything to apologize for. My wife's mother suggested we find a bench and talk. I agreed. The mother started. First, she told me that my wife has been committed to a psychologist. I've known my wife's parents for years. They have never lied to me. I've always found them genuine. Now they both stated what happened from their end with Marus. It turns out that not only was my wife a complete jerk to me, but to her parents as well. A little backstory before Marus. My wife loves drawing. She gets it from her mother. She, her mother, and others would have a drawing social group. My wife loved it. They did this for years. It made my wife happy. However, after meeting Marus, she stopped going. She didn't even give a reason when my wife's mother called her. She got defensive and completely rude to her mother. She even swore. My wife never, well, hardly swore. But this time she did. She would say, I don't give a crap about the group. It's sad and pathetic, like you, etc. Her father went all in on my wife to the point that my wife had a panic attack. Hearing their daughter tell this story just didn't compute. This was their daughter, not a person who cheats, lies, or abuses people. But this brought me back to my therapist and her belief that my wife was being groomed by a sociopath. My wife is a victim of a sociopathic therapist. No, not a psychopath, a sociopath. What's the difference? Before this, I'm ashamed to say I had no idea. Psychopaths change their personality to fit in with their social circle. For example, if they meet someone who is happy and outgoing, they change into that person. Sociopaths do not change. They make sure that the person they are closest to changes. They mold that person into a negative, vile person. Okay, it does make sense. The therapist continues. Maru clearly was doing this with your wife. He made her talk to her parents in a disrespectful manner. He purposely chose people who defend Nazis for the videos. I asked, how can someone have a hold over someone? Are you saying that my wife is a victim? The therapist replied, yes, I know that sounds obtuse, but people with sociopathic tendencies are very influential. More importantly, they are extremely controlling. Back with my wife's parents, the mother was saying that she is seeing a psychologist. Her parents looked slightly strained, but at the same time, relieved. Relieved that their daughter is getting help. A few weeks later, my wife's mother contacts me. During the past weeks, I spoke with her often. She said that she agreed and wants me and her to talk and consult during her sessions. Basically, my wife wants me and her mother to talk to her psychologist about what is happening. I asked myself, should I do this? I mean, it was agreed that my wife would sign the papers after the meeting. But something feels off, I'm not sure. Anyway, we agreed after a few weeks of sessions. The psychologist spoke to me and my wife's mother. My wife was outside waiting patiently, a bit like my therapist. She was blunt, but in a soft Irish accent. The psychologist spoke to us both. Your daughter has PTSD. Her relationship with Maru was abusive, grooming, and controlling. It has affected her from the start of the relationship with Maru. I said, she got with him in the first week. To me, that's hardly someone who is fighting for me. I said this abruptly and rudely. My wife's mother looked at me with a stern look of shut up and let her finish. The psychologist continued, Maru had all the attributes of a perfect being. We all have in our minds what that being is. When Maru started at your wife's work, he was perfect. Not just in your wife's eyes, but in others as well. I know this is hard. She looked at me. But your wife was honest. He chose her. This perfect man chose her. I said, okay, so she forgets she's married. The psychologist held up her hand. I'm not saying what she did was right. Yes, it's true she found him attractive. However, his personality is all about manipulation with kindness. For under a year, he programmed her into thinking he's perfect. Looking at both of us, she said, your wife was conditioned so intensively that she began to actually believe it. This is why she mentally abused you. Again, looking at us both, she said, this was him. After talking, we saw my wife in the lobby. She looked up at us both and smiled sheepishly. I looked at her, wanting to hate her, wanting to make her suffer, wanting revenge. But these emotions didn't come. Why? Time has passed, and there is something I need to do. I did it last year and will do it every year. I go to where I need to go. I look at it and start to feel emotional. Daniel's grave. Daniel passed away a while back. At the funeral, I saw my wife not taking it well. As I said before, my wife and Daniel have known each other since they can remember. I remember Daniel speaking to my wife after the affair went public. My wife apologized for everything, and Daniel forgave her at the grave. I don't say anything, just sit there in silence. That is until I saw my wife sitting next to me. I looked at her, and she started crying, looking at me. I've thought about shunning her countless times, being cold to her, etc., but I couldn't. I knew that today wasn't about us, but about Daniel, And so, for the first time in a long time, I hugged my wife. Time passes. I'm still seeing a therapist, and my wife is still seeing the psychologist. I sit in the coffee shop, just looking out and seeing people. People looking happy. When we were happy, I was near to breaking. She put her hand on my shoulder and said, "This isn't a feeble attempt to win you back. I bought these because I know it's important to you. And so it's important to me. I know that there's been a lot of hurt, but I want you to know that I love you. I always have and always will." I look at her not knowing what to do, but she leaves, still smiling. She always had a nice smile. I watch her walk away and I smile. I'm walking along the beach. It's a beautiful day. I buy fish and chips, and my wife and I sit on rocks and watch the sea. We talk and talk. We talk about the day, which is important to you. And so it's important to me. I know that there's been a lot of hurt, but I want you to know that I love you. I always have and always will. I look at her not knowing what to do, but she leaves, still smiling. She always had a nice smile. I watch her walk away and I smile. I'm walking along the beach. It's a beautiful day. I buy fish and chips, and my wife and I sit on rocks and watch the sea. We talk and talk. We talk about the day and things. I talk about my wife, and Maru, the psychologist, puts her arms on the table and leans towards me. "There is no Maru anymore. Your wife got rid of him. Your wife has made no secret that she wants to reconcile. This has nothing to do with Maru. Now, it's about you. After months of seeing your wife, I can say that he will never be a threat again," she continued. "I understand your skepticism, I do. But you wouldn't be doing this or meeting with her if you didn't still have feelings for her. The only question is, do you follow what you think is right, or do you let him win?" My therapist said the same thing at the time. For those 11 months, the pain was too much. However, they say time is a great healer. And for this time, I feel I've got to know my wife again. After we finish our food, we slowly walk along the beach. And I did something that I haven't done in a long time. I held her hand. She was in tears. I stopped and looked at her for the first time in a long time. I saw my wife, not the callous animal from those 11 months. I saw her. I saw the woman I loved. I saw the woman I love. And with that, I embraced my wife. Update 4. I've had many DMs and messages from people asking for an update. Like before, I want to thank everyone who replied and showed concern. However, I didn't realize Reddit was such a judgmental place. I have had people wishing for me and my wife to receive terrible things. I'm not typing their exact words, but I guess me getting back together with my wife warranted terrible implications. But I do want to thank those who supported my consultation. Not because my wife doesn't want us to, but because she is in the latter stages of therapy. Basically, in plain movie analogy, it's coming to an end. All that's left is my wife's closing sessions, which are still going ahead. As I said, I've had a lot of people asking about Maru in my previous posts. I stated that he disappeared after the affair blew up. Well, I later found out that wasn't the case. He did, in fact, meet my wife when she was trying to get back with me. Now, before anyone quickly judges, I need to explain exactly what happened. As stated, Maru went off the grid, but still tried to call my wife, text, FaceTime, and go over to the house, etc. He did this countless times. My wife blocked him on all forms of communication. This appeared to work for a while because Maru went no contact. This was at a time when my wife was trying to build bridges with her family and me. Then one day, her phone was ringing from an unknown caller. She answered. It was him, Maru. My wife was with her mom, sister, and mom's friends. When everyone grasped that it was him, my wife put him on speaker. She didn't leave the room. She didn't try to hide. She spoke to Maru in front of witnesses. I won't bore you with every little detail, but the conversation was Maru wanting to meet. My wife agreed. Now again, before you judge, please read. There was a reason why my wife wanted to put him on speaker and to meet. Her psychologist said that if he ever tried to talk on the phone, she should put him on speaker. This way she would have witnesses, but also support for those who want to know about the conversation. It wasn't much. It was basically Maru begging to Marus knows me. He knows what I look like, but he doesn't know her friend Bree and her boyfriend T. They will be there for support in Sweden. Tor looked like the typical male, a 6'4" Dolph Lundgren type. He was there to make sure nothing happens to her. Now some of you might be asking, why didn't your wife tell you about the meeting, etc. Well, at the time my wife and mother-in-law didn't want to jeopardize any chance of reconciliation. As stated, this wasn't a romantic meeting. How do I know? Well, my wife recorded the conversation, and Bree and Tor were there, who I also know and trust. I won't bore you with every little detail of the meeting. I obviously listened to it all, but here are the main excerpts. Bree and T are sitting on the next bench to my wife and Maru. Hello, what do you want? Okay, well, I want you to explain yourself. Explain myself? Yes, please tell me after everything we've been through and everything I have done for you that you abandoned us. That's easy, because I didn't love you. I never did. I'm embarrassed and ashamed that I ruined my life for you. Stop being dramatic. I gave you a life that your husband never gave you. Did he treat you well? No, he didn't. No one did except me. Christ, you sound like a child now. You never gave me anything but shame. At the time, it was never about us, was it? It was about my husband and family. No, it was about you and me. No, it wasn't. You were obsessed with my husband and family. You wanted to know what my husband liked in family, but that wasn't the strange part. No, well, what was messed up was that you immediately said they were wrong. My husband was wrong with me. My family was wrong. But in truth, it was you that was wrong. Right? Stop being childish. I don't recall you objecting to us. What I bought you, I remember you smiling and loving it. So just thank me. Thank you. Thank you for what exactly? That you got enjoyment from me disrespecting my husband. You got so much enjoyment from hearing me say that my husband was obviously in pain. But you didn't stop there. You made me say things to my husband and family that would hurt them. I didn't see it at the time, but you always wanted a report of what I said and did. Wife was losing composure. Marus laughed. I'm supposed to apologize for your husband being pathetic because he and your family were holding you back. That's the truth. I remember that you loved what I gave you. You smiled and embraced me. I made you realize that your circle was nothing more than a step. Wife, now, I'm prepared to forgive you, and we can actually make a life together. Wife laughs. You're right. I did smile when I received the gifts, but I was never happy with you. You were brilliant at making me feel like you were the one when, in actual fact, you were a pathetic man. Why do you think I finished it when I saw the papers? Because it was no competition between my husband and you. My husband is a far better man than you, more than deserving. He is a nice, kind, genuine man. You are vile in every way. You are an ungrateful woman, aren't you? Seriously, the weekends away, restaurants, theaters. I got you that. I got you to meet real people. I bettered you. I made you confident and assured. The way you're talking now to me is disrespectful, but you are not thinking straight. Oh, I am thinking straight. Probably for the first time in a while. You want straight? All those things you did were superficial. I didn't see it then. But what kind of man supports white nationalism? What kind of man thinks it's a man's right to hit women for nothing? What kind of man tries to make a person not go to her best friend's funeral? Wife stopped to breathe and continued. You are not a man at all, just a bully and coward. I am disgusted that I got involved with you, but I have to live with my mistakes. And that's what you are, Marus, a mistake. You can threaten me with releasing the videos and pictures. I don't care. There is nothing you can do to me that I haven't punished myself for. This will be the last time we see each other or speak. I know that on Reddit I will get some abuse, but I'm sorry, I don't care. I do, however, love and appreciate the constructive feedback, whether it's support or disagreement. Of course, this is a risk, but it's worth taking because I love her. I always have. For the first time in a while, I feel happy. Again, my wife and I are doing the things we love. We are reconnecting with both our families. It's a journey. The last frequent question I get is, does your wife accept what she did for my wife? It's going to be a long road ahead. She herself accepts full blame for what happened. If anyone says it's solely him, she will disagree fully. She still feels guilt, shame, and sick. She is still in therapy and progressing. But as I said, it's a long road that my wife, our families, and I are taking. I don't regret reconciliation at all. I get that the trend on Reddit is about separating, scorched earth, vengeance, etc. I understand that, trust me. But after the anger, pain, and hatred, everyone has to make a decision, stay or leave. I decided to stay, not because I'm a coward, but because my marriage is worth fighting for. Edit from my wife's point of view. Maru was put on a pedestal at work. Everyone, all the girls, wanted him, so when he showed constant interest, she was smitten. Now this knocked me for 10. I agree that sleeping with him in the first week questions our marriage. My wife said that she was in a whirlwind of a fantasy. At first he was a gentleman, but he became more dominant and abusive during the affair. Of course, I'm not excusing her actions. She herself holds herself accountable for everything. However, she has stated that I have done nothing wrong. This was her fault for letting it happen. She got hooked, and Maru manipulated her. Will she do it again? I'm going to be honest, no, I don't think she will after this affair. My wife was a mess, not a mess that she deserved sympathy for at the time, but a self-slaughtering mess. She contemplated self-slaughtering a number of times. She has openly acknowledged what she did to me, her family, and friends. I think that is why reconciliation is slightly easier. Because of her ownership, it would be easy to walk away and hate her. Don't get me wrong, I did when this was happening, but her family and I still love her, and we have to believe that she will never do it again. Edit 2. I don't mind constructive criticism, I expect it, but when some people are vile and wishing us truly awful things, it's nonsense. I hope we are one of those couples who makes it. I am under no certainty that this might not work, but I have to try. I understand parts of what her psychologist was saying. If I didn't fight, then he would have won. Now, I know some people got triggered by that sentence in the previous post, but they have to understand that this was a game to him, a game that he was clearly winning. But the turning point was my wife. She ended it when he thought he had her completely. After that, it was my wife doing everything to atone and build our trust in her. There have been many times that I wanted to walk, wanted to give in, but the gut feeling was no, I couldn't walk. I had to fight for my marriage, because if I didn't, then yes, Marju would have won. Just to be clear, I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing this for me. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more.